It might seem like I'm joking, but I kid you not, July was one of the worst months, but also one of the best months. Hi everyone, my name is Rochelle for anyone that is new here. I read a variety of books, and what we're going to be doing today is going over my July reading wrap up, and this one is probably my most baffling one because I kid you not, I didn't finish a book until the second week of July. It was one of those months where there was just so much stressors and so many things happening that I just could not sit down with an actual book. So the fact that I read a total of 9 books is just absolutely wild, because I think I have not read that many books this entire year. I have been continuously behind every single month on reaching my 100 book reading goal, and this is something I do every single year, but I was even more delusional thinking that, oh, I can do this. I can totally read 100 books the year that I'm getting married, when none of the other years I've made it to 100 books. I don't know. I digress. I'm getting way ahead of myself and all over the place. So as I said, I read a total of 9 books in July. That was 2,920 pages. Oh my gosh. Something that was really surprising is my average rating was 4.11 stars. So not only did I read the most amount of books in July, but I also had the highest ratings. Absolutely wild. And then I'll insert the graph here that Storygraph has, but I did not finish a book until the 10th of July. So like I said, it just was not in the cards for me going and finishing any books. So the way I do my reading wrap-ups is I tend to just go and do a little bit of a yes, no, or maybe for each book, if I would go and recommend them to you, if I wouldn't, if there's a little bit of gray area. And because I tend to squirrel brain and everything, I do have a little synopsis I leave of each book. So in case if you're curious, you can go and look at it that way and find out, oh hey, that book is right up my alley, or definitely not, I don't want to touch that book with a 10-foot pole. So first book we're going to talk about is The Nightbirds by Christopher Golden. This one I listened to as an audiobook. I think I got it from Libby, and this one was kind of in the middle. If you're looking for something really scary and terrifying, I wouldn't say to go and pick this book up. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit fast-paced and something that is really great to listen to while you're doing additional tasks, and you just really want to get in that creepy feeling, especially with fall coming up, then I would recommend this. So with this book, we have a couple that they were together years ago and ended up going and splitting, but suddenly they're reunited because the ex-wife has a boy that she is trying to go and protect from this cult of witches that want to use him as a sacrifice. And the guy is like, okay, this is really weird, but I still have feelings for her and I don't want anything to happen to this kiddo. Sure, yeah, I'll go and take them on. And while this is happening, you're getting a bunch of different POVs, one from the male main character, then also from the female main character, and then I think a few different like side characters that are linked up to them. And it was really interesting. It wasn't super scary. Yeah, there were some pieces that were a little bit creepy and everything like that, but it wasn't something that absolutely terrified me. Now, granted, I do go and usually watch horror movies as my comfort, so maybe take that with a grain of salt, but it was not a story that I was super terrified over. So I'd probably say somewhere in the middle where I would recommend this. If you want something fast-paced, yes. If you're looking for something super scary, then don't go to this book. Then at one point, I ended up going and picking up a couple of manga because July was Disability Pride Month, and I was really hoping to go and read more disability representation books, but it just was something that I just was in such a weird mood that some of the books that I had just didn't work for me. And then I realized, oh hey, I have a manga that I really want to continue reading and I haven't finished all the books. So I decided to pick up Perfect World again. And this one is one that is just so great. This was actually a manga that I picked up when my fiance and I first started dating, and we would go and kind of pass the books back and forth and read them and basically go and talk about them with each other. What parts made us sob, what parts made us laugh, things like that. So with the story, we have 2 people that went to high school together that get reunited when they're at a work get-together. So our female main character is Tsugumi, and our male main character is Itsuki. And Tsugumi, she had a huge crush on Itsuki when they were going to school together. And she always just admired him, really liked him, but he just didn't really give her the time of day, and also, I think, got into a relationship with someone else at that point. So she basically was like, oh, this is a lost cause. This isn't gonna work out. But then they end up going and running into each other at this restaurant. And she's like, oh my gosh, I went to school with you. Do you remember me? Because I remember you. And they end up going and talking, reminiscing a little bit. And then as he moves away from the table, she notices something is a little bit different with him. And that's when the people at that restaurant pull out his wheelchair. And she learns that he was in an accident that gave him a spinal cord injury. The thing that I love about this so much is that it deals with an inner-abled relationship where one person is able-bodied and the other person is disabled. As someone that has a disability and is dating someone that is able-bodied, it was really neat to go and read these mangas, because the thing is, with these books, they actually did go and consult someone that is a wheelchair user just to go and make sure that they were going and writing and doing everything in the right way, that they were being factually correct and being cognizant about any things that some people without disabilities wouldn't be aware of. So I really loved these books. I only read 1 and 2. In the first one, we're kind of dealing with Tsugumi going and dealing with a lot of things about like how her feelings are with Itsuki and if she would go and date someone that is in a wheelchair, and at the same time, why is that an issue? There's a lot of really great talking points and discussion points in this manga that I really love, because it's stuff that you might not consider until it's something that's brought to light. So for me, one of the things that I could easily go and relate to was when they went to a movie or they were going out together, and Tsugumi went and noticed that so many people were going and staring at them and kind of pointing fingers in a way. And that's something that I can kind of relate to a certain extent, because my hands are out in the open and sometimes people, they might go and like do a quick glance and then realize like, wait a second, something seems off, and they'll just go and stare. And that's kind of the same way with my feet as well, because I do have 2 toes on my right foot. And whenever I was at the swimming pool and everything, I would kind of notice if people were going and staring at my feet and whatnot. And that's the thing, like when people come across someone with a disability, it's one of these things that they have to stare at because their brain doesn't fully make sense of it. So there were a lot of pieces in here, although I'm not a wheelchair user, that I could relate to as someone with a disability and as someone that has dealt with a lot of inner ableism as well. So I think this is a great manga. It is very heartfelt. It really goes and touches on the highs and the lows of dating and in relationships, and how relationships are hard work, but sometimes there's a few additional obstacles that can come out, and it's like, is this something that you're willing to deal with, or is this something that it's like, why is this even a problem? So yeah, that's my little soapbox piece, but I really love these. There are 13 books in this, and I'm planning on going and reading all of them because I only got to book 3 or 4, and I do want to know what eventually happens. Then we have When She Was Me by Marlee Bush. This was actually a book that I talked about during my Love It or Lose It episode, so I won't go into too many details because I really went and explained a lot of my thoughts in that. But with this book, we have 2 twins that basically escaped to this secluded campground, and they're basically hiding because they had something traumatic that happened in their past, and we get different POVs, and it's kind of alluding to potentially being one of the sisters' fault. Is it faults or fault? Fault. Yeah. And the other sister basically can't leave her and has to stick by her side. Like she can't, that's her sister. She loves her. She's gonna be with her throughout it all. So we're getting these mysteries this way, but then eventually another family goes and stays in one of the other cabins, but then their youngest child goes missing. And it kind of sparks up this whole thing and also brings to light a lot of events from the past. I thought this book was really great. However, I had a few different problems with it. One of the things being that this was a pretty chunky book, and I truthfully don't think it should have been as long as it was. It probably could have been chopped down a little bit because there were some moments that the book really dragged on for me. I also found that I was kind of rushing because I really wanted to go and get my Love It or Lose It video out, so I really had to go and speed read, and the fact that this book was a little bit longer than I would have liked didn't sit with me that well. So this one would also kind of be a maybe as well. I thought it was really good, especially the fact that this was the author's debut novel. There was a great way that she went and wrote that kept me intrigued and everything. I just felt like it was a little bit too long of a book, but if you're interested in trying this out, I would recommend it. I thought it was really good, and I did kind of have the twist figured out but I still had a fun time with it. Then another book that I talked about during my Love It or Lose It episode was Spark of the Everflame by Penn. With this one, we basically have this daughter that ends up going and taking over the job of a healer in the castle after her mom disappears. And she's trying to go and figure out what exactly happened to her mom and tie together a lot of different mysteries and pieces, but also kind of discovering that there's some stuff about herself that she's kept hidden and might be completely different than she thought it would be. With this story too, we have these regular humans and then the Descended. And the Descended kind of seem like an equivalent of Fae. They're very beautiful, they are extra strong, they're powerful, but also kind of can't be trusted and whatnot. That's at least what The Descended reminded me of when I was reading this book. I would say that I would recommend this one. I know so many people have hyped about this story and just love it and how much they flew through it, especially the second book, which I'm really excited to check out. I thought this was really good. I did like our female main character and a lot of her witty banter and whatnot. I thought it was quite enjoyable, and there were a few moments that she made some really silly mistakes that made me shake my head, but overall I did really like her, and I'm very interested in the love interest, so we'll see how things go in the second book. But if you're like me and you were kind of dragging and putting off reading this book, I highly recommend going and picking it up and finally knowing what happens, because I think the fourth book is coming out this fall. I don't know if there's going to be another book after that. So I think it's only 4 books for now. But yeah, so if that is your final push to actually pick it up because you won't have to wait so long for all the books to come out, this is your notice. Another book I talked about in Love It or Lose It was also The Caretaker by Marcus Kliewer. With this one, we have our main character who is basically out of luck, out of options. She is struggling to go and pay the bills, take care of her sister, and so because she has no other options, she decides to go and take up an offer from Kreslist to go and take care of a woman's husband. And she knows that it's so weird, very sketchy, probably shouldn't be going and answering anything that she finds in Craigslist, but she needs options, especially since they're going to be evicted from their home. But when she gets there, she learns that it was kind of a ruse to go and have to take care of this woman's husband, and it's actually a house sitting position. And I'll leave it there because I know a lot of people like kind of going into thrillers with knowing as little as possible, and especially with this author's books, I feel like they're one of those things that you really need to not know much about it. I thought this book was good. However, I still think I prefer We Used to Live Here more. The thing is, with We Used to Live Here, that one kept me guessing and kept making me make theories and question things. And this book did do that to a certain extent, but I feel like there wasn't as much of what I experienced with We Used to Live Here compared to this one. I feel like more of the answers kind of were given to us, and it was just more of the creepy factor. Another piece that kind of frustrated me was that the main character of the book was not my favorite kind of main character, especially in horror movies and everything. There were so many moments that I just wanted to like shake her and say like, snap out of it, get yourself together, like, you know, Edna mode in Incredibles. Put yourself together! This was okay. However, I'd say, if anything, if you haven't read any books by this author, I would check out We Used to Live Here first before going and reading this one. It was okay, but I wouldn't go and rave about it. I will still be checking out any book by this author though, because holy crap, they just have a way of writing and it just feels like so much of a fever dream, and that you need to just jump into Reddit and look up other theories and see if there's anything other people notice that maybe you didn't pick up the first time. So yeah, it was good, but I still prefer the other one. Then we have Her Last Breath, and I listened to this one as an audiobook. I think I talked about this one a little bit in my vlog where I was attempting to go and participate in Summerween, but it didn't really happen, and I ended up going to the Ren Fair and doing a lot of other self-care things that filled my cup. So if you're interested in that, I will link that video up here. This was my first book by Taylor Adams, and I am definitely going to read more books by this author. Holy crap, I really enjoyed this one, and especially if you want to listen to the audiobook, I think that would be great. With this, we have 2 friends that end up going and doing some cave spelunking. One friend is super experienced in this, and the other friend, this is her first time doing it. And when they get there, there's this really shady person that's also kind of camping out, and they get weird vibes from him, but they're like, okay, whatever, we're gonna continue doing our thing. And it seems like they're being followed. And so I will leave it there, but with the book, you also get different POVs. One that is taking place in the cave exploration with the two friends, and then the other one is with a detective that is going and talking to someone to find out what exactly happened in that cave. I thought this was such a good story. It was very creepy and eerie, very claustrophobic, especially with the whole cave factor. I don't think I'd ever want to go spelunking in a cave. I'm good, I'm fine. I don't want to do that. I am fine watching that in horror movies or living vicariously through someone else that wants to do it. I am fine in my home and not going into any sort of caves. I've watched too many horror movies. So if you can't tell, I would also say that I would recommend this one. It was so great and I can't wait to read more by this author. I actually do own other books by them, but I haven't actually read them yet. So it might be something that I pick up in the coming months. We'll see. Then we have From the Grave by Kresley Cole, and this is the final book in the Arcana Chronicles. I did go and talk about the other books in this series in my June wrap-up, and since this is the last book in the series, I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'll just leave a synopsis basically of what this book series is about. It's kind of like Hunger Games meets tarot cards meets post-apocalypse, and that's something that if you are someone that watches a lot of my videos, you will know, like, yeah, that is right up Rochelle's alley, because I love anything that has post-apocalypse in it. It's just something that is my bread and butter. Give me those books. Seriously, give me those books. If you have any recommendations for post-apocalyptic books, leave them in the comments below. Every handful of years, this event will go and happen that basically ends the world, and these major arcana will get put into place, and it's a bunch of people that are representatives for certain tarot cards. So there's the one for the Fool, Death, the Empress, the Hermit, and the thing that happens is all of these cards are put into place. These people have different powers and everything, and they basically have to go and kill off each other. And as they do that, they get the other tarot cards glyphs, and whoever has all the glyphs at the end lives. They're immortal until the next game happens. I really loved this series so much. I think I started reading it at least at the beginning of high school, and this series took forever to finish. I think it didn't finish until after the pandemic, so around 2021, 2022. Obviously, I fell off of the series and I had to go and restart it a handful of times because I could not remember what had happened previously. So when I finally got the chance to go and reread everything, it just happened around the tarot readathon. I was like, this series is perfect for the tarot readathon. I'm gonna work my hardest to go and finish it. And I was so close, but there just wasn't enough days in June, so this had to go and carry over through July. And honestly, I could have done without this last book, if I'm completely honest. I will 100% rave about the series and suggest people go and pick it up because I think it is so much fun, especially with the tarot card piece. And if you also enjoy like wide shoes or love triangles, also really great. But the thing is, I think that I relate to so many other people that were reading this series and waiting for the last book like I was, because I think the author, when she got to this book, she just wanted to finish it. She wanted to end it. She was done and over it. So she rushed the ending of this book. It basically was all this buildup, and then suddenly we get the huge climax, the huge moment that we've been waiting so many books to happen. And then all of a sudden it was over. And the rest of the book just felt like this really long extended epilogue. And the thing that doesn't make sense is in the previous books, we get this set of rules that is how the games happen. And you can't basically stray away from these rules because the gods that created this game won't allow it to happen. But then there's pieces that happen in this book that basically contradict everything we've been taught the whole time. So it's just very confusing and like, wait, I thought things were this way. How can this happen if you told me this in the previous book? So there's that piece, and then the ending of the book, which upset me so much. If anything, I would say read the first 3 to 4 books in the series and then just ignore the others. Don't do what I did and read the rest of them, because once you get to the very last book, you will be bummed out. I recommend the beginning half of the series. I don't recommend the very last book. Then the last book that I read technically was one that I started at the beginning of the year and then ended in July. And I have read this book before, which is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. So at the beginning of the year, my fiance and I actually ended up going and listening to Dungeon Crawler Carl. I've listened to it before, but he has not. And so I really wanted to go and experience that with him. And the thing is, we would only listen to the book every time we were in the car. And so as you can tell, that was why it dragged out for so many months. And then we finally finished it in July and then started the second book. So with Dungeon Crawler Carl, basically we have our main character Carl, who is trying to get his ex's cat, Princess Donut, out of a tree. And while that's going and happening, basically the world ends and suddenly there's just this huge game and huge dungeon that him and Donut are brought into, and they have to go and survive. And after a certain time frame, they have to go down to the next floor. And it's just basically this huge battle type of thing, very nerdy and reminiscent of a lot of gamer type of things that you might experience as a gamer, with sometimes getting really great loot from a monster that you go and slay, and sometimes getting very crappy loot and getting experience from going and defeating these creatures, getting different quests. There's a lot of fun pieces that I really like about Dungeon Crawler Carl. I don't think it is a series necessarily for everyone, because there are some pieces that are a little bit gross and very bro-y, but at the same time, I think if you're a gamer or like D&D or certain things like that, I think there's a certain appeal that will draw you into this story. And as a lot of people might go and recommend, I would 100% vouch for going and listening to the books as an audiobook. I can't remember the name of the person on the top of my head, but he does all of the voices for all the characters, and it's so amazing and so impressive. My fiance is an aspiring voice actor, and he was just thoroughly impressed. He did not realize until a couple of weeks ago that the audiobook was voiced by the same person. He thought it was a bunch of different people this whole time. So if that's anything to convince you, I don't know what else I can say that can go and get you to go and download the book and listen to it. Dungeon Crawler Carl, highly recommend, but highly recommend picking it up in audiobook format and then getting shelf trophies, because that's what I currently have on my bookshelf that you can't see because my camera's angled somewhere that will get light better. Those were the 9 books that I read in the month of July. Technically, one of them was the beginning half of the year of 2026, but I finished it in July, so we're counting it for our total. It was a great reading month, super duper stressful, but really impressive with how much I was able to read towards the end. And I think that really got me back into reading and picking up books more, because now I get the feeling that once I get to the halfway mark of the book, I have to sit down and finish it. I need to know what happens next. And before, in the previous months, I felt like I really had to drag and force myself to do that. So I feel like I'm getting bit by the bookworm again, and it's so enjoyable. It's been a great way to go and escape, especially from all the stress and also all the heat that we're experiencing. So if you also had a great reading month in the month of July, I'd love to hear down in the comments below, what was your favorite book that you read in July, and do you think I'd like to read it? Definitely curious, because my TBR is ever growing, if you can't tell. But I appreciate you all so much for being here. If you made it to this point of the video and you don't know what to comment, but you want to show your support that you were here, leave a wheelchair or some sort of mobility device in the comments below. And as always, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all so much. Please leave a like, possibly subscribe, hype. It all helps out my channel so much. And as always, I just want to remind you that you're worthy and capable of amazing things. Bye, friends.